The Republican attorneys general are basically asking for a fugitive slave act. I mean, this is just incredible. The Biden administration has proposed a rule that would say that if, say, Idaho, for example, not only outlawed abortion, but said that if you take a person across state lines, so it would have to be a person under 18, but if you take a person across state lines for the purposes of getting an abortion, you commit a crime, and presumably so does that person. And well, I don't know if the person getting the abortion would be charged. Probably not, actually, because they would be a minor. But in any case, you commit a crime. So Idaho then, butts up against Washington State and Oregon, and so Idaho might reach out to Washington or Oregon and say, we'd like records of your abortion clinics. We want to know, what women showed up for abortions and that sort of thing. Now, this is also gender-affirming care for trans people. And now we discover that 19 Republican attorneys general are fighting explicitly this Biden proposal to say that blue states don't have to rat out people fleeing red states to get abortions or trans care or gender-affirming care. And in fact, they want to be able to pursue women in their states who have moved to other states. So what do you do? I mean, if let's say that you're a family living in Idaho or Mississippi or Ohio or Indiana or whatever, one of these red states that have outlawed abortion, and you've got a 15-year-old daughter, and you're worried that what happens if she gets raped and impregnated? And if you take her to another state to get an abortion where it's legal, you go to prison. Are we going to start seeing mass exodus of families, of women of childbearing age and girls leaving red states and moving to blue states? Is this what these guys are trying to do? Is this what they're trying to bring about? I mean, in Louisiana, the Attorney General Jeff Landry, he wants info on out-of-state abortions and gender-affirming care. He says it's needed, his spokesman said yesterday, it's needed to investigate the sexual abuse of children. Right, so you need to find out who got an abortion out of state. I get it. Arkansas Attorney General Tim Griffin. If you had an abortion or gender-affirming care outside the state of Arkansas and you are a legal resident of Arkansas, Tim Griffin, Arkansas Attorney General Tim Griffin, wants to know about it. In Tennessee, Jonathan Skrmetti has joined 18 Republican governors in demanding that the federal government not block him, not prevent him from getting medical records. Basically, what the Biden administration is doing is proposing a change to what's called the HIPAA law, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. This is administered by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and they have the power to tweak the rules of HIPAA. And one of the rules that they're trying to strengthen, essentially, is that if you're a woman or if you're a trans person and you go anywhere in the United States for the purposes of getting care, whether it's abortion care or gender-affirming care, medical care, that your medical records, the federal government is trying to say, under the HIPAA laws, your medical records are still yours. They are still private. And your doctor cannot be forced, or your hospital cannot be, for clinic or whatever it may be, all of the above, cannot be forced to reveal that information to the Attorney General, the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of some red state that you may have come from. And now we've got 19 Republicans on record saying, no, we don't want to do this. We don't want the federal government to protect the medical records of women and trans people. We want to be able to go after them. This includes the Attorney General of Arkansas, the Attorney General of Alabama, the Attorney General of Alaska. These are the states where the Attorneys General are actively trying to prevent the federal government from preventing them from going into blue states and demanding women's and trans people's medical records. And by the way, I guarantee you, it's not going to stop there. This is the low-hanging fruit. But, what happens when they start, now the war on the LGBTQ community expands to gay men. And so they start demanding records on HIV. Or, I don't know if there's any medical condition unique to lesbians. I don't think that there is. But, they'll figure out a way. They've got their persecuted minorities that they want to go after, and they're going to figure out. So anyhow, the Attorneys General of Arkansas, the Attorney General of Alabama, the Attorney General of Alaska, the AGs of Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Kentucky, Louisiana, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, North Dakota, Ohio, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, and Utah. If you live in one of those states and there is a woman of childbearing age or a girl of childbearing age in your family, you are now at risk of imprisonment. Or if there's a trans person in your family, you are at risk of, and so is that trans person, of imprisonment in these states. It is absolutely nothing less than that. And this war on women and on trans people, well, on the entire queer community, really, this war that these states are waging is having, social consequences beyond just those individuals. For example, this was in Richmond, Indiana, last month. Michelle Dion Peacock she is a 59-year-old straight black cis woman, 59 years old. And she was confronted by 67-year-old Tommy Wayne Earl in Richmond, Indiana in June because he believed that she was a trans woman, that she was actually a man or had been born, not actually, I'm sorry, that's terrible language, that she had been born a man or whatever, assigned male, and had become a woman. In fact, she was born a woman. And Tommy Wayne Earl slit her throat with a straight razor because he thought she was trans. She wasn't. This is the fear that every trans person in America lives with every day, and trans people are regularly being beaten, being harassed, and being murdered. And anybody who might look like they're slightly, possibly, that woman looks a little too masculine for me, or that man looks a little too feminine for me, out come the razor blades. When Earl was arrested, the guy who murdered her, he said she was a male acting like a woman. That's a verbatim quote. And he said, and I'd do it again. In another incident, 32-year-old Colin Smith was stabbed to death here in Portland, Oregon. Another straight person, a cis man. But he was out with some coworkers at the High Dive Bar here in Portland when 24-year-old Renique Jackson started harassing one of his coworkers who was trans. Smith tried to intervene, and Jackson stabbed him. I mean, transphobia is deadly. And now we have these states that are saying, oh, we're just trying to protect the children. Which is, that was Adolf Hitler's excuse, for God's sake. Arkansas, Alabama, Alaska, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Kentucky, Louisiana, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, North Dakota, Ohio, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, and Utah. These states are on record now as essentially wanting a fugitive slave act that they can use to, saying that they can assert this to pursue trans people and women who are seeking abortion care anywhere in the country. What is this going to do to our country? What is this going to do to our society? Are we going to start seeing an exodus of families from these red states into blue states just for their own friggin' safety? This is insane.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Actually, it's not insane. This is fascism. Let's call this exactly what it is. This is how fascists behave.